flag of America. And when am I doing that backwards? Oh. And when I first saw this flag in, I don't know, about 2004, I was shocked, I was kind of offended. I didn't know what to think about it. It seemed really almost sacrilegious or something. But as I have learned more and more about the issues related to corporate influence over government, I have come to kind of love this flag. And I don't know how it affects you all, but that's how this thing has worked for me. I don't like loving this flag, but this flag really is a parody that symbolizes our situation in the United States at this point. And so, thank you, Klaus. So I'm going to be talking today about things related to the situation that we are in and how we got there. Here's another symbol. You know, we hear about Citizens United all the time, and I've discovered that many people don't understand that Citizens United refers to two different things. First of all, it refers to the 501c4, which is the conservative political, basically a funding organization that sued the Federal Election Commission over the movie, which was really a hatchet job on Hillary Clinton. It was called Hillary the Movie. And anyway, they sued the Federal Election Commission because the FEC had said, no, they could not run it in the way that they wanted to do back when Hillary was running for the primary, in the primary for the nomination for the Democratic person running for president. And so this is the symbol for Citizens United, that organization. Now, pretty much from here on out, I'm going to be talking about Citizens United, meaning the Supreme Court decision that happened in 2010. And it is called Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. Shorthand is just Citizens United. And Citizens United, the organization, was not a nice thing. It's got a pretty name. I mean, how could you be against something called Citizens United? But actually, this was an incredibly divisive organization, and from my point of view, very anti-democratic. Then this is the Supreme Court decision that came down. This is the one that freed corporations to spend unlimited money campaigning for or against people running for office. And Citizens United is based primarily on two crazy Supreme Court precedents. One of them is that a corporation is a person entitled to constitutional protections, and the other is that money is equal to speech, and therefore it can't be regulated in the political process. Both of those, from my point of view, are pretty crazy ideas. I want to say a little bit about the corporation in early America. You know, when the United States had its revolution, it wasn't just against King George of England. It was also against the English corporations because they were very, very troublesome. They had way too much power over the colonists and the colonies. In fact, the colonies themselves were actually British corporations. But in early America, a corporation had to have a public purpose. It couldn't be just to make money. There had to be building a road, a bridge, a canal. I mean, there had to be some public good that a corporation was chartered in order to accomplish. And the charter was time limited, like 20 years was a common amount of time, and they had to be passed by the legislature of a state. It wasn't just filling out the paperwork, paying your fee, and now you've got a corporation. No, it actually had to be managed, approved by a state legislature and to be voted on. And we have every reason to believe the reason it was this way is because our founders recognized that corporations can get way out of hand, so they wanted to keep them local in states. In fact, back then, they had to actually reside in the state they were chartered in. The people who ran them had to reside in those states because they wanted to be able to keep a tight rein on corporations. Corporations could not influence elections or legislation. Imagine that. And a corporation would be terminated for public harm. So, I mean, something dramatically smaller than the oil spill in the Gulf would have already had corporations, dechartered. And profit was incidental. The purpose of a corporation was for that public good. It wasn't to make money. That is how things were in our country from the outset of the country until it started changing really in the 1880s is when the shift started to be more and more toward let's make some money. Now, a little bit more of history. In 1868, the 14th Amendment was passed, and that's the one that gave freed slaves constitutional protections. This was an amendment. It wasn't a Supreme Court decision. It was an amendment, and it was very democratic. It was a good thing to give freed slaves those rights. Then 18 years later, attorneys for the huge corporations of the day, which were the railroads, they were able to illegitimately slip in the idea that a corporation is a person. And this particular Supreme Court, here it is, this is how you do it. This particular Supreme Court decision is the one that gave that is cited anyway as the one that originally gave corporations personhood, the rights of as if they were people. It didn't, we could have a whole presentation on what really happened with that, but this is the one that is cited as where that came from. But through the ensuing years, since 1886, corporations have picked up all kinds of other protections. Specifically, they've gotten First Amendment free speech rights, starting way back when, but the big one being, it was very, very much advanced in the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. They've gotten Fourth Amendment search and seizure, which has huge implications for the environment when they have that protection. They've gotten Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Seventh Amendment. I won't go into details in the interest of time. Here's another huge decision that has a lot to do with how it is corporations wait a minute. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm on my wrong slide. 1919, this actually was a Michigan State Supreme Court decision, but it holds as the law of the land still. In this one, it was determined that, a quote from it, a business corporation is primarily for the profit of the stockholders. So, from the beginning of the country to 1919, this was a complete turnaround. That now, it's no longer anything having to do with a public good. The purpose of a corporation is for profits for shareholders. This is another big decision and one that really does have direct implications for Citizens United. This is the one in which, in 1976, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that money is essentially equivalent to free speech, and therefore it can't be limited in the political process. This doesn't just apply to corporations, this applies to individuals as well. And this is the reason that billionaires, such as the Koch brothers, are able to put hundreds of millions of dollars into political, can spend hundreds of billions of dollars on political campaigns. I stopped there and made a distinction because the way this works is that they can't contribute to the war chest of campaigns, but they can spend endlessly, whether it's an individual or a corporation. And that's where money equals speech came from. Okay, so then I'm leaping ahead to the current Citizens United, and really it puts corporations in the position of being able to essentially buy the government that they want. Okay, now if you will look at this image and visualize this as something that does not exist anywhere in the natural world. This is not exactly a genetically modified plant. This is something that is completely alien and destructive and not really of this world. And if you think of it as, if I can get this little, oh, there we go, this thing to work. If you think of these branches on here, that maybe this one right here, let's say, is United Healthcare, and maybe this one is Pfizer, and maybe this one is Goldman Sachs. How about Exxon, maybe right here, and Monsanto here, and maybe News Corp here on this last one. Okay, and you can put your own, whatever corporations you choose, but, we'll think of them as being the branches up here. And for years, for decades, really, we, human beings, real, natural people, have been doing things, hacking away as we can at these branches. That's what we've done. Through regulatory agencies, through efforts to sue corporations for the harms that they do, through trying to influence our elected officials to do what we need rather than what the corporations need, our energy has gone into, hacking away at these branches. And when you really think about it, has that gotten us very far? I don't think so. I don't think that is where it's at. Hacking at the branches will not cause change in the system. In fact, hacking on those branches, in a way, just stimulates the growth and the power of that system. And that, I believe, is the situation that we currently are in. And likewise, fighting one corporation at a time, one regulation at a time, even one industry at a time, is sort of the same. We don't get much done when that's where we put our energy. Now, please don't hear me as saying just roll over and go along with, the Keystone Pipeline, and that's just a branch, so don't worry about it. It's just a branch up here, and that won't matter. No, put energy into fighting those things. But what we also have to do is we have to fight the root of the problem. And I guess I didn't say, which I intended to when I had the original plant up there by itself, but that image basically represents illegitimate corporate power. That is what the whole thing here is about. Illegitimate corporate power. And that is what we need to fight. Yes, fight the regulations, fight for better regulations, sue corporations when that's the thing to do, talk to your legislature, your representatives, do all of those things, but have energy also into the root of the problem, and that is illegitimate corporate power. Congress did not pass corporate constitutional rights, ever. None of the corporate constitutional rights came from Congress. No president has ever recommended corporate constitutional rights. That hasn't happened. The root of the problem is where we've got to put our energy, because it all came from the Supreme Court. I want to point out, I suppose this is the obvious, but just here are some of the ways in which we and corporations are not the same. First of all, human beings were created by God or nature, however you think of it. We got here naturally somehow. Corporations they are a creation of government. Human beings, we don't live forever. We know we're all going to die. And corporations, they don't necessarily die. I mean, some of them go bankrupt and do eventually, but the huge mega corporations, and that's what we're really talking about here, they can live forever. Human beings have a conscience, they have feelings, corporations have neither. Human beings value many things, certainly relationships and life and a lot of things that go with that. Corporations, by law, value one thing, and that is profits. Human beings can take the long view. People think about, the world that they're passing on to their children and future generations. Corporations only look to the next quarter because, their quarterly profits is what their focus is, and actually, by law now, that's what it should be. But that is not the long view, and that is not good. And human beings look at nature, look at the natural world as essential to life, and we treasure it. Corporations look to the natural world just for how they can exploit it, what they need, what they can make money from that's in it. We are not the same. Corporations should not have constitutional protections. Okay. But why an amendment? I mean, that's asking for a whole lot. There have only been 27 amendments in the course of the United States, and 10 of them were the Bill of Rights that came out right at the very beginning in 1791. But why an amendment? And here is why. Because the Supreme Court in 1803 ruled itself as supreme among the 3 branches of government. And that is the way it is. The Supreme Court is supreme. And their job is to interpret the Constitution. Well, the word corporation was never mentioned in the original Constitution or in any of the amendments to the Constitution since then. So it is really open widely to interpretation, and we know how they've interpreted it. They say corporations are persons with constitutional rights. That's what they say. Okay, well, the Sierra Club, at least 12 years ago, because I got this information from the Sierra Club's website, at least 12 years ago, the Sierra Club had begun really recognizing that you couldn't just go for fighting those branches, trying to regulate and sue and those things. They recognized that we had to start looking at the problem systemically. And I must say, I'm so happy the Sierra Club did that, and the Sierra Club has officially endorsed Move to Amend, the organization that I am a part of, and the language that we have for amending the Constitution. And there are flyers, downstairs. Jennifer, where are the flyers? We have flyers everywhere that you can get that have the language that we are seeking. In short, our language says that only human beings and not corporations are persons entitled to constitutional protections, and that money is not equivalent to speech, and therefore it can be regulated in the political process. And that is what we need to do. Here is another symbol. This is a symbol that I love. This was the logo for Madison, Wisconsin, when they, almost a year ago, passed a ballot initiative with our language calling for the amending of the Constitution on those two things. Madison, Wisconsin has done it, Boulder has done it, Missoula, Montana has done it. All around the country there are many cities and other municipalities that are getting on their ballots resolutions calling for this change. People are getting it. Here are a couple of other symbols I like. One for Los Angeles, one for New York, because both of those cities, through their city council, not through ballot initiative, but through the city council, their city councils have passed resolutions calling for what we want, a constitutional amendment on those two things. There are two states that have now called for amending the Constitution to straighten out this problem, and Vermont is also working on it and is likely soon to be added to this list. But does this blow your mind that two states have actually done that? How far behind can Kansas and Missouri be? And another thing that's happened, in the oh-so-liberal state of Montana, the state Supreme Court of Montana, now they haven't called for like completely overruling Citizens United, that bad Supreme Court decision, but they have ruled in their state Supreme Court that their Citizens United doesn't count, that they have a compelling interest in being able to regulate corporate participation in elections. And so this just happened at the very end of last year. It will certainly go to the Supreme Court, and this will be an interesting show for us all to follow. Here's just a mind-blowing fact, and some of you may know this, but of the 100 largest economies in the world, 53 of them are corporations, the very biggest one being Walmart. And, but that just puts into perspective what we are up against in terms of money and power, and why we, the people, need to come together and fight this fight. Okay, so this brings us back to that flag that, as you know, I wasn't real crazy about in the beginning, but, you know, now I've come to love. This is actually a window sign that you all can buy from us. If you have an interest, you can get one of these for $2. It's not this flag, it's a poster. And we have lots of them here, and there's a table downstairs. We would love for all of you to sign. This is not a legal petition, but just simply sign up so that you will be getting occasional emails from Move to Amend at the national level about what's going on there. If you would like to get Kansas City Move to Amend things, let us know that. We believe that there is a Move to Amend group that is going to be forming here in Wichita, in Iowa. They've got several going. We need to have affiliates happening everywhere. And so we are asking for you to get involved with us, as well as, you know, doing whatever you're doing with the Sierra Club and the Occupies. I do want to put a shout out to the Occupies because they have exploded the issue, and they've been totally wonderful. Here's an incomplete list of just some of the kinds of things that are affected when corporations have this kind of power. And I just want to say that we really can do it. We really can do it. It means people coming together, because we are, when you come down to it, we are intended to be a democracy, and that means rule by the people, and if enough of us say we want an amendment, it will happen. And now I want to say that I am looking forward to a day when this flag, the corporate flag of America will be a relic of this interesting time in America. We will all be able to really embrace the American flag with the stars and the stripes, and that we won't have to be dealing with this. And since you all just spontaneously applauded, I want to just kind of end with this little thing that we do occasionally in Kansas City that goes,